Welcome to the first of the two lives today. I have two amazing plant-based doctors for you today, a primary care physician right now coming up, and then a cardiologist. I'm Chef AJ. If this is the first time you are seeing me, welcome to my live show. It really wasn't a show to begin with. I started doing these broadcasts on March 20th, the day after the governor ordered us to shelter in place as a way to create community and connection with my community. I pushed the wrong button. It went out to everybody. People seem to watch. They seem to like it. Hey, Vanessa, thanks for being here. So now I've been doing this anywhere from 1 to 3 times a day. I've done close to 80 shows in the last 6 weeks. And I'm blessed that I have so many friends and colleagues that want to come and talk to people and to teach about their purpose and passion. And often I have guests that aren't plant-based, but they're people that were really important to me in my life. And we have one of those coming up tomorrow as well. As always, I know you guys like to ask a lot of questions. Keep in mind that the chat goes much faster for me than it does for you because it actually disappears after there's about 10 or 12 comments. So the best way to ask questions, and we know there's always lots of questions when it's a medical doctor, is by sending us an email. If you subscribe to my email list, which I'll post a link for, every night we send out who's the guest for the next day, as well as the replays from the day before, and just click reply and then you can ask your question. So thank you guys so much for being here. And so I'd like to introduce my guest who is going to talk about how to avoid being comfortably uncomfortable. And this is a plant-based doctor, or just a doctor's transformation story. And his name is Dr. Steve Lawenda. He works at Kaiser Permanente. He runs an amazing program called Plants 180 that has transformed so many lives. And I'll let you tell him about it. I will turn the screen over to him. Thank you so much, Dr. Lawenda, for being here.
Thanks so much, AJ. And thanks so much for all you're doing. You're doing amazing work, especially now when people are home and they're obviously, so many of us are worried these days about what's happening in the world and what could happen to our health and our family members. And I also want to, on that note, I just want to say to everyone watching that my heart goes out to everyone. This is a very unprecedented time in our history. So many of us are potentially at risk, or we have family members at risk. There's not only health concerns, there's financial concerns that people have. And I know that many people are also, many of my colleagues and friends are on the front lines. I want to thank them for all they're doing as well. And my heart really just goes out to everybody. And so on that note, actually, I'd like to actually start, AJ, if you don't mind, just talking a little bit about COVID-19. Not so much all the intricate details, but I just want to talk in general in terms of our risk. And I think a lot of people have heard this before, but for those of you who haven't, 90% of the people who are dying appear to be those with underlying conditions. And when I first heard the statistics on this, it was not all that surprising. But on the other hand, that 90% seems a bit high from what I'm sort of used to in medicine. And I did a little research into this, and a lot of you watching may not have heard this before, but a lot of times we're taught, especially medical doctors, we're taught that chronic diseases are one thing and infectious diseases are another. But actually, when you dig deep into the research, you'll see, and this is what I did recently, that when it comes to flu deaths, it's a similar story. Up to about 90% of those who die from the flu, again, I'm not talking about COVID-19, but the influenza, are those with underlying conditions, or including obesity, diabetes, heart disease, et cetera, lung diseases, asthma, et cetera. And it's not just the flu, and it's not just respiratory diseases, but it's also diseases, infectious diseases like urinary tract infections. And those can become very serious, actually. In some people, they can spread into the blood and cause what we call sepsis, and cause multi-system failure, and people can die from those. So things like urinary tract infections, but also, especially in diabetes, almost any infection or wound the wounds are slower to heal in people with diabetes, and they're more prone to infections and amputations. So it's not just COVID-19. It's really most infectious diseases that are deadly, most of the ones we see today are related to underlying conditions. And there's so much we can do about it. I watched your interview, by the way, with Dr. Furman the other day. It was great. And one of the things that Dr. Furman mentioned was that, it doesn't take months or years to improve your risk, to lower your risk. And actually, there are studies showing that when you follow or transition to a plant-based diet, your inflammation markers in your body actually can be reduced significantly within a matter of days to weeks. And we know that inflammation a lot of times correlates with immune system function. And so there's, and some of those studies have actually looked at some of the markers for immune system function as well. And they found that those have improved, again, within days to weeks. So I don't want you to feel overwhelmed that, why change now? It's too big of a change to make to become more plant-based or to a plant-based diet. It's not going to make a difference. It will make a difference, and it'll make a difference quickly within days. And not only can you lower your risk of COVID-19 and other infectious diseases, but of course you can reverse your underlying condition in the first place. And most people don't know that you can reverse diseases like diabetes and hypertension within also a matter of days to weeks. Oftentimes it doesn't take months or years. It can be really quickly. We see in our program that you mentioned, AJ, the program that we created in my medical center, that it's typical for people even people on insulin, to get off the insulin within a couple weeks, sometimes a month, sometimes a couple of months, but that's actually very common. And the majority of people who come to us on insulin get off of it completely. High blood pressure pills as well, acid reflux medication, on and on and on. So don't wait. So I'd like to share, if it's okay, AJ, a little bit of my background and story. I know you've heard it before, but I'm going to share some new insight that you may not have heard me share before, AJ. And also, I know that some of your followers have seen me speak before or have met me, and a lot of them know my story. But I'm going to share some new insight today. So hopefully this will help everyone. So first of all, my story really begins with my dad, which I know you've heard this, but again, some new insight. So my dad suffered with so many chronic diseases over many, many years: obesity, diabetes, heart disease. Had a heart attack when I was only 12 years old and he was 45. I mean, such a young age for him, and also for me to fear at the age of 12 that I could lose my dad. I mean, he was growing up, he was kind of like a lot of kids, your dad is your hero. And to worry that he could die when you're only 12, it was such a scary thing to have to go through. And then, about 10, 12 years after that, he went through coronary artery bypass surgery. And that's pretty scary as well. I thought we could lose him over that. Even though he had quit smoking after the first heart attack, his diet didn't really change. And he became progressively short of breath, where he could hardly walk a few steps, going up the stairs, or couldn't walk really a block or two without having to stop because he was short of breath. And he ended up having bypass surgery. And again, that was in his mid-50s. And for several years after that, he did so. He was suffering with diabetes, and slowly but surely was getting complications, neuropathy in the feet, losing sensation, getting pain in his feet. He was starting to lose his vision. He couldn't drive at night anymore because his vision was so bad from what we call retinopathy. But for the most part, he was doing okay. And actually, one of the things that he had wished for many, many years was to become a grandparent. And finally, his wish came true. And he not only became a grandparent, but he was doing pretty well at that time. He was working. He was a functional man, other than not driving at night, although for all I know, maybe he did drive at night and take his chances. But that's beside the point. But so he was doing well, and he was very happy. Became a grandfather. And by the time that our daughter, his first grandchild, was learning to walk, my father ended up losing his ability to walk. He started off, and I hope this doesn't, I know for some people this picture is pretty graphic, but I'm going to show it because I think we just need to be real and understand what we're faced with when we talk about chronic disease. This is a picture of my dad's foot. I'm sure you guys can all see. He developed a severe ulcer, became infected, and had to have a lot of surgery and debridements and everything. And unfortunately, after many procedures to try and save his foot, including a vascular bypass surgery in his groin, which was a major surgery in and of itself, he ended up losing the leg and lost the leg below the knee. And it was devastating to him. And, a lot of people can lose one leg and still function somewhat. So even though it was very depressing, he forged ahead. He tried to remain as positive as he could, but his diet didn't change. Nothing else really changed, just kind of same old, same old. And unfortunately, about 6 to 8 months after that, in his good remaining foot, this happened. Another horrible, awful wound. You can see how black the tissue is. It's dead, basically. And you can't, once the tissue gets like this, you can't bring it back.
Does it, just because I've seen these pictures, but I've never asked you that, is that how it starts? Because that seems like an extensive amount of damage. Like, does it start smaller if they had caught it
This
sooner?
started, good question. This started a lot smaller actually, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And a lot of times when you have diabetes, you have very poor circulation. So it starts small, like for you or me, AJ, we would heal a small wound. But for somebody with severe diabetes and circulation disease, peripheral vascular disease, they don't heal so well. And a lot of times, and the immune system, we talked about the immune system is not good either. So infections can spread and healing is very slow. So he ended up, unfortunately, losing the other leg as well. So like I said, just as our daughter, his first granddaughter, was learning to walk, he lost the ability to walk, lost both legs. And to say that this was devastating is an understatement to him personally, but not only to him personally, but to our entire family. In medical school, we learn, and not only medical school, but in life, we learn that illness is illness. Illness is so much more than illness. Illness is life. Illness is everything. I mean, health is everything, the opposite. There's psychological impact. I mean, there's physical, of course, physical impacts when it comes to illness, but there's psychological. There's effects on your family. There's effects on your finances. There's effects on where you work. My dad was working. There's effects on our whole society, on the cost of medical care. I mean, and this, but to be honest with you, I mean, being his son, I can tell you firsthand that this was extremely, severely depressing to him. My father went into a severe, severe depression. So a lot of people think, oh, an amputation is an amputation. This was, to be honest with you, I think the worst thing that came out of this was the depression, which he really never recovered from, because his life was transformed so profoundly because of this. And that depression really didn't just stay with him. It really spread to our whole family. I mean, all of us really felt just so down about what had happened. And the other thing too, is that when we talk about health and medicine, we're not just talking about how long you live or what your hemoglobin A1C is or what your pills are, but what is your quality of life? And when you become a grandparent for the first time, whatever, whether it's the first time or the second time, you want to enjoy that. You want to enjoy those years with your grandchildren, and your grandchildren want to enjoy the years with you as well. And to be honest, my father was on one hand fortunate to survive about, I think it was 8 years after he lost both legs, which is good in the sense that, he did well. I mean, as far as longevity, considering the circumstances, but those years were very poor quality. And I mean, the only bright side that I could see was that he did bond with his grandchildren, but it just wasn't the same. It wasn't the life that we all wanted for him and what he wanted for himself. And so, and the thing is too, is that, a lot of people might say, well, but that's not going to happen to me. An amputation won't happen to me. And maybe that's true. But, strokes happen. They can be devastating. Bless you. Strokes can be devastating. Heart attacks can be, people can die from heart attacks, obviously. I mean, so, and not only that, but a lot of people suffer with just overall poor quality of life, low energy, fatigue, joint pain, digestive problems. So there's just so many ways in which health affects us. And it not only affects us, but it has broad ripple effects across our families and our communities and society. I want to share a few other lessons I learned from my dad's story, and then I'll get to my story as well. One thing my dad, we heard him say all too often. Well, to be honest with you, he didn't eat the best. That's probably not going to shock anyone listening to this. And there were a lot of desserts and processed treats that he was eating over the years. And we would ask him, like, why are you eating that? You shouldn't be eating that. And you know what he said? He said, and I'm being honest, and I'm not trying to, unfortunately he's passed away, but he's told me that I can share his story with everyone in hopes that it will inspire them and help them. And I promised him that I wouldn't let his suffering be in vain before he passed away, that I would help people to help as much as possible to prevent needless suffering like he went through. So I have permission to share this. But he would say that, I can eat this because my insulin will take care of it. My insulin will take care of this donut or this pastry. And a lot of people feel that way. He's not alone. I've been a doctor for 19 years. I The other day I estimated, this is kind of crazy, but I estimated that I've probably had somewhere on the order of 75,000 patient encounters, whether it's in the hospital or out of the hospital. So I have a lot of experience talking with patients, and I know that many of them they have this feeling that their medication, their pills, their insulin, whatever it may be, will take care of them, and that they can basically get away with almost anything. Patients who have acid reflux, they might say, well, I can eat almost anything because my Prilosec, my Nexium, my Pepcid, Zantac will take care of it. You know, on and on and on. In fact, I have this phrase, comfortably uncomfortable. I think what happens is that a lot of us, over the years, we start to develop health problems little by little. Things get worse and worse. But as we go to the doctor, first of all, the doctors aren't trained in nutrition. I mean, very little. And our system doesn't really support lifestyle interventions. Our healthcare system, it really supports, and we're trained on pills and procedures for the most part. Even though we talk about how lifestyle should be priority, a lot of the treatment guidelines say lifestyle should be priority. It ends up that pills and procedures are what we end up doing almost all the time. And so what ends up happening is that as you start, even when you're young, you could be a young woman going to the doctor with polycystic ovarian syndrome, and they give you birth control pills. Or maybe you have painful periods. They give you Motrin or ibuprofen or something like that, or put you on some other hormonal treatment for that. You could have acid reflux. We put you on acid reflux medication. The point is that you may be uncomfortable when you come to us, but these medications might make you give you some degree of comfort, you know? So we end up making people comfortably uncomfortable. The problem is the underlying cause of the problem isn't being addressed. The problem isn't going away, but we're making them perhaps more comfortable. And when it comes to chronic diseases, the medications do work to an extent. They do slow down the disease process. They do lower our risk, but they don't address the underlying condition, the root cause of the problem. And the condition continues to progress over the years. People need more and more medication. And you know what? We're not fully protected from those diseases as we are when we address the underlying condition. For example, if a smoker develops asthma or COPD, right, we can give them an inhaler, but we all know that that inhaler is not going to stop all the damage from the smoking. That smoking could cause cancer, that smoking can cause an ulcer, that smoking can cause all sorts of heart disease, all sorts of problems. That inhaler may help the breathing to a degree, but it won't treat the whole effects on the body that smoking has, all the damage that smoking is doing. Same thing with food. So I learned that in hindsight from my father and from my patients that, you know, we can't let our pills and procedures comfort us. I mean, it's not that I'm against all pills and procedures. Don't get me wrong. I think really lifestyle should be first. We should do our very best to address the underlying root cause of the problem. And then the pills and procedures can play a role, but we really have to do so much better. In fact, there are studies, I found this fascinating. I've done a little research into this. There are studies showing that when people go on statins, those are cholesterol lowering medication, and when they go on blood pressure medication, that over the years, when you follow these people, you would hope that their diets would improve because they'd say, oh my gosh, I've got high cholesterol or I've got high blood pressure. I need to work on my diet. When in fact, their diets actually worsen over the years. The studies like that, or their weight also worsens over the years. Studies like that don't necessarily prove, but imply that people are feeling this sense of comfort from their pills, feeling like my dad did, that they can get away with continuing a lifestyle that got them in trouble in the first place, that their pills will take care of that Danish, of that pastry, of that bagel with cream cheese, whatever it may be. And by the way, speaking of comfortably uncomfortable, I want to talk about something very important, especially for men, but also for women too. You'll hear why in just a moment, and that's erectile dysfunction. Now that I have everybody's attention. And I know AJ knows that you know this, AJ, and a lot of your followers may know this, but not everybody. Erectile dysfunction is a perfect example of what I'm trying to say. My point here is that we give men, and by the way, 40% of men in their 40s, 50% of men in their 50s have it. Erectile dysfunction is essentially the same disease as heart disease. It's clogged circulation. When you get clogged arteries in one part of your body, you get clogged arteries everywhere. It's just a matter of time before the symptoms show up in various parts of the body. And erectile dysfunction, some have called it the canary in the coal mine. And that is a great way of looking at it, because it seems to be the early warning to the body. And the reason that is, for those of you who are wondering, why would erectile dysfunction come first and then heart disease years later? It's because the arteries in that part of the body are smaller, so they clog up first. In any case, as a primary care doctor, I prescribe tons of Viagra, Levitra, Cialis, you name it. I prescribe tons of it because so many men have this condition and they want the medication. The problem is that medication does absolutely nothing to address the root cause of the problem. So what ends up happening is the man is comfortably uncomfortable. The man is not necessarily happy with this problem, but comfortable that the pill is working. His partner is comfortable with the fact that and happy that the pill is working. Maybe the partner doesn't even know that he has a problem because he's masking it with this. Maybe he's ashamed to share, and I understand. But nonetheless, I'm off on a tangent there. But the point is that men who have it are actually, and studies have shown this, and there's been more studies even recently. It's been looked at more than once, that men who have erectile dysfunction are not only at risk of heart disease, but they're at risk of early death. In fact, so much so that it might be on the order of 50% or higher risk of early death. And that, to me, that's obvious. It's because men who have erectile dysfunction have a poor lifestyle. They're clogging up their arteries. They're at risk of heart attack and stroke. And if they don't change their lifestyle, nothing, they're not really going to alter the course of their future. So that's very important. The other thing I learned too from my dad, and I think I mentioned this earlier, is that, again, it's not just about quantity of life, but quality of life. I have so many bad nightmares that, I don't know if they're nightmares, but just dreams about what could have been with my dad. And a lot of times it's because, he recently passed away a year and a half ago. And I've just always thought, my dad didn't know about plant-based. He never really, he learned about it at the very end of his life, because unfortunately I didn't learn about it either until not so long ago. But I just wonder what would have happened if he had become plant-based years ago. What not only the quantity, but the quality. And we also have good data showing that plant-based and healthy lifestyle in general just has dramatic, significant improvements over vast aspects of our life, our quality of life, our energy level, our pain level, our mood, depression, anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. So very important. So that's my dad's story and how it's affected me. But now I'd like to share my story, my personal side of this too, because as I saw my dad going through this, obviously it's so depressing, shocking, depressing, tragic. But at the same time, I was worried that, look, I'm his son. I have his genes, or at least half of his genes. I'm half him, half my mom. I don't know how, which genes I have exactly, but I was worried that I was following in his footsteps, because I weighed, I'm 6'2". I was weighing about 255, 260 pounds. And I had pre-diabetes. This was about 8-9 years ago. I had pre-diabetes. I had fatty liver disease. I had acid reflux myself. And I was really, truly worried that I could have an early heart attack and die young, or that I could end up with diabetes and end up with all the complications like my dad. And I didn't know any better. All I knew was what I knew from medicine, and which is, pills and procedures. But, and as a doctor, I want to just talk about my professional side of my story as well. I've been seeing up until that point, my patients, a lot of them get depressed, frustrated, anxious over their health, because they're not seeing things really get profoundly better. They're seeing their numbers improve, but, if a person is 300 pounds, we have such a epidemic of obesity. If a person's 300 pounds and they're on 15 medications and they've got so many chronic diseases and heart disease and sleep apnea, which, by the way, sleep apnea could lead to heart conditions as well, like atrial fibrillation and coronary artery disease and early mortality. People have these conditions, and arthritis and pain. On and on and on. We know what all these conditions are. I'm giving them the pills. They're not getting better. They're coming back. They're getting worse. They're getting depressed. And as a doctor, this burns you out, because you feel like you're on this treadmill. You're trying so hard to do the very best you can for your patients, and they're not getting truly well. I mean, their numbers are improving, and they may have some small victories here and there, but for the most, a lot of patients will appreciate their doctor. They're very kind and appreciative no matter what we do. They just seem to appreciate, because they know we're trying our best, appreciate us. But deep down, it was not very satisfying, to be honest. It was a very dissatisfying career up until that point. There's an epidemic of physician burnout. I think a huge percentage of that is that we just don't see our patients getting well. There's not a reward. So I was one of those people. So I was really worried personally, but also professionally, I was burning out. And fortunately, I learned about plant-based nutrition, and I want to share how I learned about it, because there's lessons in this. And AJ, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before. I thought I have, but if I haven't, it might be news to you, and surely it'll be news to people listening, or at least most people. AJ, you know Karen Spector, yes?
Absolutely. I believe that's how this whole thing started.
Yes. Did I share this with you before? I thought I did, but okay. So Karen Spector, and she's given me permission to share her story. I don't want to go into too much detail, but because I can go on and on. But Karen Spector had an autoimmune condition called discoid lupus. It's a skin condition that's autoimmune, and again, it's related to lupus. In any case, it was pretty bad, and she was on strong medication. I don't know if you guys have, those of you listening, have heard of thalidomide. Well, anyway, thalidomide, there was a lot of controversy with thalidomide over the years with birth defects, and you can look that up, and that's a separate topic. But she was on thalidomide, and it was causing her to have neuropathy in her feet, and she was having trouble with her vocal cords because of it. And she had done her own research. God bless her. She's amazing. I'm so impressed, amazed by people who've done their own research on lifestyle and who have made changes and healed themselves. Without any doctor's help, she did this. And so she became plant-based, and she literally reversed her condition, got off the thalidomide, and the neuropathy in her feet reversed, the vocal cord condition also reversed. She essentially became a very healthy person. And she went to her doctor, her dermatologist, Dr. Karp, and God bless him too. I'm grateful to both of these people, very grateful. He was very open-minded, and he had never really heard, like most doctors, didn't have the training in nutrition and lifestyle. And anyway, so Karen recommended to Dr. Karp the book Eat to Live by Dr. Furman. And Dr. Karp read it with an open mind, and he was blown away. And all of a sudden, he became very interested in nutrition and lifestyle medicine, and he started to promote it to his patients. He became known in his circles as the physician to go to when patients are looking for other ways, other holistic, natural ways to heal themselves, especially, he's a dermatologist. So in any case, at this point, I'm still not involved in the picture, but one of our friends actually was Dr. Karp's patient. And one of our friends, his name is Udi, and Udi had severe psoriasis. Psoriasis is also autoimmune, and they were going to put Udi on strong biologic agent, which is essentially, it's a medicine that potentially has risks to suppressing the immune system. So it's a very strong medication, and Udi was nervous about it, and he was referred to Dr. Karp because he was looking for other options. So Dr. Karp recommended also to Udi a plant-based lifestyle and recommended Eat to Live, and perhaps I don't remember all the other recommendations that were made, but the point is that Udi, essentially over 90% of his psoriasis disappeared. He didn't have to go on that medication. He lost weight. I believe he had improvements in a lot of his numbers, like triglycerides and things like that. And he was just so blown away, Udi, that he told my wife, Patty, about it. And God bless the extroverts of the world, because my wife, Patty's more extroverted than I am. And so she talks to more people than I do in general. I'm the introvert. And so she was recommended the book Eat to Live by Udi. And also my cousin, Alan, even though he's my cousin, he was talking with Patty again. And my cousin, Alan, found that when he became plant-based, also happened to be the same book, Eat to Live, essentially he could turn like a switch. He turned off, when he became plant-based, it's like turning off a switch that completely shut off, that reversed his high blood pressure, his hypertension. He no longer needed medication. But as soon as he ended up kind of sliding back towards his old habits, the switch was flipped back on. And so he could basically turn on his hypertension and turn it off depending on how he was eating. And he was so blown away by the benefits that he ended up sticking with the plant-based diet. And he shared the story in the book with Patty. So by this point, Patty had heard it from 2 different people and said, you know what, Patty was convinced, and Patty's open-minded, convinced that we should read this book. And I actually didn't even know about these conversations until one day we're in the car coming home on a trip, and Patty loves audiobooks. So she got the book on audiobook and started playing it in the car. And we were coming home from a trip, and I just wanted to relax and just listen to music. And I asked Patty if maybe we could listen to music instead. I didn't want to hear anything academic or especially about nutrition, because to me, it sounded like, quackery. I mean, like quack medicine. I mean, so I asked her if she could turn it off, and she said, because I say quack because I didn't think we could reverse conditions like what was being claimed. But they say happy wife, happy life. I let her leave it on, and the more I listened, I was sort of half listening. I started thinking, wait a minute, maybe there's some truth to this. And again, the more I listened, the more I became intrigued. And I ended up reading the whole book myself, and I ended up challenging myself. I said, you know what, maybe this is the answer. And maybe this is the answer because, all along, and I know you know this, AJ, and many of your followers do, but many don't. And this video will be publicly shared. So for those who are new to this, as a doctor, and not only as a doctor, but most of us are told that to weigh less, you have to eat less and exercise. You have to starve yourself. Here I am learning with the plant-based diet, we can eat as much as we want, but it's not how much we eat, it's what we eat. If we understand the concept of calorie density, not only that might sound like those are big words to people, but I like to put it this way as well. I call it the magical buffet, which I'll explain more later perhaps, but plant foods, whole plant foods are rich in fiber and water. Fiber and water, for those of you new to this, are your two new best friends. And I say that because fiber and water take up space and they're heavy. They fill up your stomach, they're heavy, but they have 0 calories. So when you eat whole plant foods, you're filling up, but with less calories because of all the fiber and water. And I'm a visual person. This is a visual from Juliana Hever. A lot of people have seen this online, but essentially what you see here is your stomach can be completely full on a plant-based diet with less calories. But if you're eating the same calories with animal foods or processed foods, you won't be full. We always want to be full. So we're going to want to fill up. And when we fill up with animal foods and processed foods, we end up overeating in terms of calories. And that's why we have trouble with weight. And that's why we're all told portion control and exercise are the ways to lose weight. And I had struggled with that my whole life because, portion control, it's torture. Portion control is torture. Starving yourself is torture. And exercise, don't get me wrong, there's benefits to exercise, but believe it or not, this may shock some people, but when studies are done on exercise programs, they're not very effective when it comes to weight. They're effective with so many things. It lowers first of all, it improves our immune system. So it's good for COVID-19 and the flu and everything. It's good for energy. It's good preventing heart disease, preventing diabetes, preventing cancer. But our weight doesn't shift that much. We really have to change what we eat. And so I learned about that. I also learned the genetics, because I've always been, a lot of us are taught to believe this, especially those in medicine, that genetics are really almost everything. That if something runs in your family, you're basically doomed to get it. There's not much you can do about it. And what I've learned through lifestyle medicine and plant-based nutrition, and I should mention too that although I love Dr. Furman's books, there's so many other great books out there, and I've read many, and excellent documentaries. So I want you to know that there's a wealth of information out there. And Chef AJ you have some incredible books as well. Your stories and recipes and tips are phenomenal. So check all those out. But nonetheless, what I was going to say, I lost my train of thought, is that, that genetics are our destiny. Well, there's a saying in lifestyle medicine, I think Dr. Esselstyn may have been the one, forgive me if this isn't right, but who started saying this, is that, genetics loads the gun and lifestyle pulls the trigger. And I can't think of a better quote than that to sum up the point here, to explain the point. Because what I've seen as a doctor, now that I am more lifestyle medicine oriented, and I've run these programs, which I'll talk about a little bit later, is that even though many people have diabetes in their family, within a matter of days to weeks, again, the diabetes can completely reverse itself. High blood pressure, the same. Heart disease can be prevented and reversed, even though it may run in the family. Obesity, the same thing. So we can go on and on and on. But it's absolutely true that genetics is important. It's very important. But if anything, if it runs in your family, you just need to be extra careful with your lifestyle. Take it much more seriously. And yes, we all know people. This is an argument I hear all the time that, hey, so-and-so eats this, eats junk food all the time, doesn't gain weight, doesn't get diabetes, doesn't get heart disease. Well, yeah, and so-and-so smokes cigarettes and they don't get lung cancer and they don't get emphysema. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. And some people have the best genes on the planet and we're all jealous of them perhaps, but God bless them. But for most of us, we're not so blessed and we really have to take our lifestyle more seriously. So I learned that. And then the other thing, again, that chronic diseases, we've all been taught, especially in medicine, that chronic diseases are progressive. You start with 1 pill, then 2 pills, then 3 pills, then maybe you need insulin. And, I see so many people, it's depressing that by the time they're in their 60s, they're hoping, hey, the golden years, retirement, everything's going to be fantastic. I'm going to see the world. Oh, maybe you can't see the world now, but life is going to be great. And so many people, it's very depressing. They end up not only on a lot of medications, but they end up disabled. A lot of them have trouble walking from bad joints and just low energy and they're just an awful condition and it's really sad. And so what I'm trying to say here is that so many of these conditions are reversible and a person can truly transform their entire trajectory of their life. The earlier, the better, don't get me wrong, but it's never too late. Now, when I was learning all this, I got to be honest, I grew up, AJ, with, I love my mom. My mom and my dad so much. My dad's passed away, as I mentioned, but my mom grew up in a family that owned a mom and pop fast food restaurant. And my dad grew up in a family who owned a bakery. So I'll let you figure out what kind of foods we loved in our family and how I was raised. And again, I love them to death, but I grew up just, in hindsight, I was really an awful eater. And anytime I was given something that appeared to be healthy, like a vegetable, I would look for the family dog and see if I could sneak it under the table and that kind of thing. So I never really ate well at all. And so I thought, I can't do this. I can't eat plant-based. The food's going to taste awful. And, I couldn't see myself doing it. And I also couldn't see myself being 100% plant-based. And so many of my patients say, doctor, there's no way I can do your diet. Well, first of all, it's not my diet. There's no way I can do, I'm sure you, AJ, you've heard that too. I can't do your diet. And what I've learned since then, and actually through the process is that, first of all, you don't need to be 100% to see significant benefits. Everybody's different. Every situation's different. Some people go 70%, 80%, 90%, and they're very happy with the benefits they're seeing. So don't let perfection be the enemy of good. That's key right there. The other thing, though, there's a catch to this, though, which is that if you're going, let's say, 60 or 70%, most people, I don't recommend that you aim low. Like, to me, that's low. When you aim low, the problem with that is if you're allowing certain junk foods into your diet, say on Mondays or having cheat days on Mondays and Saturdays and so forth, that's like saying, yeah, I'm going to quit smoking, but I'm only going to quit 80%. And so the problem is that you're going to be triggering, the addiction's not really going. There's an addiction aspect to this. I know, AJ, you know this very well. You're one of the, as far as I'm concerned, you're one of the best in the field as far as helping people understand this and helping them overcome their addictions. So in any case, so I challenged myself to go as close to 100% as I could. And this is what I recommend to my patients, but I allowed myself the idea that I don't have to be perfect. If I'm 80 to 90%, that's okay. I'm going to do my best, but I'm just going to keep aiming to improve, and I'm not going to beat myself up if I'm not perfect. And by the way, I want to show a couple pictures of food, if that's okay, because so many people, and I was one of them, I thought plant-based is grass and cardboard all day. And we just, that's not true at all. Actually, I've been getting into, how do I put this? I've always loved eating my whole life. I still do. And that's one of the things that makes me so happy about this lifestyle change for me personally, is that I haven't given up my love of food. And so this week was Cinco de Mayo. Now I'm going to show you a picture of something I ate on Cinco de Mayo. These are nachos, which I know, AJ, you may have seen this, but I have, and for those watching, I do have an Instagram page. You're more than welcome to follow me, Dr. Steve Lawenda. I share mostly what I eat and then also some tips and some news about plant-based, but these are 100% plant-based. This is not grass or cardboard. This was absolutely delicious. Now, of course, I don't eat nachos every day. Even though that was 100% plant-based, they are a little richer in calorie density. We know that. But I had some leftovers, and I love tacos, but here's some tacos with cabbage instead of tortillas. And a lot of people ask me, well, that looks like real meat. What is that? In this case, it's made with walnuts, but you can make all kinds of natural substitutes for meat. I don't recommend the fake stuff, but nonetheless, oh, and one other thing, what would be life without dessert? This is chocolate banana nice cream. Now we call it nice cream because it's dairy free, but you can make nice cream out of just about any fruit. For those people who do love chocolate, it's not necessarily something you have to give up, although it may be addicting for some. I respect that completely. But the point being is that you can have dessert, you can have it basically every day. And I don't feel deprived whatsoever. I love this way of eating. And I especially love the fact that this way of eating is my medicine. And I feel this sense of freedom. Why do I feel freedom? Well, I haven't said this yet, but I've lost 75 pounds. Where is my picture? I lost 75 pounds at 8 months. Here's a picture before and after. 75 pounds. And I lost my pre-diabetes. I lost 20 points on my blood pressure. I lost my acid reflux. And I lost a lot of my anxiety over following in my father's footsteps, because I know, I see it, I feel younger. I know that I'm not that same person from a few years ago. I'm a new person, and I'm the person that I should have been. And I think deep inside all of us, there's a healthy person, healthy, relatively trim person in all of us. We just have to find that person and support them and love them and so forth. So, in any case, now so that's my story, and it's transformed everything in my life. Oh, before I forget, how could I forget? My wife, I'm so grateful to her, Patty, for not only introducing me to this, although she didn't even know what she was introducing me to. She just started putting it on. We both were introduced to it really together. And she supported me on this journey. It really helps to have support, of course. Not everybody does have this kind of support that I was fortunate to have. But Patty, I don't know whether because AJ, you've only known Patty since she's lost her weight, but Patty also lost about 40, maybe 50 pounds, depending on when we're looking. Here's a before and after of Patty. And the picture before, just to be clear, was about 10 years ago. So, and the picture on the right is more recent.
Well, but what's interesting is the smaller she gets, the bigger her smile gets.
That's right. And a beautiful smile, exactly. So, any case, where was I? So, lost my train of thought. That was my personal journey. I feel so free. And I said, you know what? I have to now transform my practice, because I've been burning out. And there's no way I could see all these benefits for myself, see the light, and not share it with my patients and transform medicine. Now I look back and I go, oh my gosh, the way we're trained and the way we practice is just, I don't want to say it's completely wrong. It's not. It's just that there's something huge that's missing. And so I decided to transform my practice. And the first thing I did, I made a mistake, although I didn't realize at the time. So I thought, well, I'll just keep the same type of practice, and I'll just try and squeeze in this education into the patient visits. I'll just find a way to squeeze it in. The problem is that, when you have an appointment that's 15 or 20 minutes, and you're trying to squeeze in an entire plant-based education, and a lot of times the patients aren't even coming for that. They're coming, they have a list of questions for me and things they want to discuss with me that has not, in their mind, they're not coming for a nutrition education. So what was happening was that I was finding that I was spending maybe an hour with each patient because I felt like this could change their life. But then what ended up happening is I would run so behind on my schedule, and then patients would become upset with me. I've been waiting so long, and I would go home late. I'd finish my days late, and I go, oh God. And then I'd realize, you know what? This isn't the best way to teach people. I mean, one-on-one is good to a degree, but people need people need support. And I could be so much more efficient with time as if we had a group program and a community. And also, some people need to taste the food, because some people will say, this all sounds great, doctor, but again, it's not going to taste good. It's grass and carbohydrate. So we created a program. In fact, let me back up a little even further. There's a nurse practitioner named Maureen Woodson, and she saw me losing weight. In fact, a lot of doctors, colleagues, staff saw me losing weight. The first thought was, what's wrong with you, Steve? Do you have cancer? Are you dying? And I assured them that I didn't have cancer and I wasn't dying. And I told them what I was doing. And so many of them ended up transforming their lifestyle as well and their health. And Maureen Woodson was one of them. And she was on 4 medications for blood pressure, cholesterol, and everything, got off everything, lost weight, feels great. And so she's a go-getter, Maureen, and she's awesome. And she loves people. So we decided together to start a program in our medical center. And it's a group-based community program. We meet once a week. And we're able to now spend, instead of 15, 20 minutes with each patient, our meetings are about 2 hours each. And so patients are getting the education that they need. They're tasting the food. We have cooking. I say we have. With COVID, everything's pretty much virtual now, unfortunately. Although I say unfortunately, but thank God we still have something. But the point is that when in the pre-COVID era, we had cooking classes. We had, again, support group meetings, ongoing education. It was fantastic. We called it Life 180 because the idea was that people were transforming their lifestyle and their life, their health, 180 degrees. And we saw transformations like this very often. It wasn't just a name of a group. It was something that we really did see. In fact, I'm just looking. Oh, and one other thing I want to mention too, that I didn't earlier. And I know, AJ, you know all this. I feel like when I'm talking to you, AJ, I'm preaching the choir. But I keep telling myself that I'm talking to you, but who I'm really talking to are the people listening and watching this. And so the other thing that I didn't really realize, people say, oh, your taste buds change. Well, I said, yeah, that's not going to happen to me because I've never liked broccoli. There's no way I'm going to like broccoli. Well, your taste buds do change. I'm here to tell you your taste buds do change. It takes time though. That's the thing. We're not always patient. I thought your taste buds, if they're going to change, it's going to happen in a couple of days, but it takes a few weeks. So you have to be patient. And a lot of times you'll have cravings, but those also take a few weeks. So once I learned that it takes a few weeks, it made it easier to kind of accept that it's going to be tough for a little while. And I fought through that. But in any case, where was I? Lost my train of thought. But the point I was trying to say is that we teach this to our patients. We teach them that, and I think for those of you watching, you have to understand that if things don't taste amazing right away, give it time. I eat things now I would have never dreamed of eating years ago. And I can't believe that I love them. Now, to an extent, I'll just give a little tip for those listening. Sometimes what helps, a lot actually, especially for me, is seasonings, herbs, spices, lemon, garlic. I didn't really even know what cilantro was. I think I'd heard it before, but let me tell you, if we run out of cilantro in our refrigerator, I'm sounding the fire alarm. We need cilantro, we need some basil in here, we need some chili powder, some Italian seasoning. I mean, these are like staples. And I love hot sauce too. So I put hot sauce in everything. There's a joke that Maureen and I have, which is that if you put hot sauce or salsa on anything can taste good, in any case. So we started this program and we've had some amazing success. I'd like to share some of the stories of success to inspire people. And when I have another, I forgot, I have another picture. These aren't the things that the food I showed you earlier was food that I've made. So I always tell people, look, if a busy doctor can make this food, you can too. But these are just some stock photos, but these are all plant-based. And what you see is not cardboard and grass. You see colorful food with just, your imagination is the limit. Every cuisine on the planet you can get healthy, delicious plant-based food from every cuisine. And that's the thing is I thought, oh, I'm not going to have Chinese food anymore, Mexican food anymore, Thai food anymore. I have everything. It's just a healthier version of it. Okay. So how are we doing so far?
Well, we're doing great.
Okay.
It's interesting what you said.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's interesting what you said about how doctors experience a high degree of burnout. I know that, but I didn't realize it was from not seeing patients get well. And I would imagine that those that are on the front lines right now
Sure.
must be extra stressed because many
Absolutely.
of their patients are not getting well right now.
Absolutely. No, I think a big part of it is not seeing patients get well. The other thing too is that we work very hard. And I think we work very hard because our patients are not just sick, but they're very complicated. Why are they complicated? Because they have multiple chronic conditions, multiple medications. They need so many lab tests and x-rays and so many things going on. And again, it's just sad the way things are because it's so much of it is unnecessary. It's needless. In any case, I'm going to share a couple stories. I didn't realize, we were running a little low on time, but I'm happy to keep talking.
You can,
Yeah.
I'm free till
Hey.
4 and then I got Baxter Montgomery. So this is your platform. So as long
Sounds
as you'd
good.
like to talk, you can talk.
And I have plenty of time too. It's Saturday. I'm not working today. So the first story I want to share is a man named Kevin. Kevin has type 1 diabetes, and he came to us. Actually, he didn't really look for us. We found him. But what ended up happening was that Kevin had a severe wound, like my dad, a severe wound on his foot that wasn't healing. He was told he was going to need an amputation. He was actually literally on the verge of getting the amputation. The orthopedic surgeon asked him, he said, Kevin, you tell me when you're ready because you're going to need this. And, I'm ready when you are. And this is Kevin's foot. I'm just going to show a picture of Kevin's foot. And now from here to here, that's all. In other words, over half the foot is one giant wound that wasn't healing. It was infected. He was on IV antibiotics. And Kevin just, they tried everything to help it heal. And all the wound care, the advanced wound care, antibiotics, et cetera. And Kevin asked his foot doctor, Dr. Marshall, who's a podiatrist, he said, Dr. Marshall, is there anything else we can do to save my leg? I don't want to have to lose it. Of course, who wouldn't say that, right? Well, it just so happened that Dr. Marshall, first of all, she trained at Loma Linda. God bless Loma Linda, because they're very open-minded, lifestyle medicine oriented. She trained there. She'd already had this open mind towards lifestyle medicine. She happened to work right next door to Maureen, the nurse practitioner who works with me in our lifestyle medicine program. And so Dr. Marshall had the idea, why not introduce Kevin to Maureen and have him work on his diet? What does he have to lose? He's already going to lose his leg. So she introduced the idea to Kevin, and Kevin was so desperate. He said, you know what? I'm not trying to be funny here. He basically said, I'll do anything. I'll even eat some veggies if I have to save my leg. And he wasn't joking. This wasn't funny at all. But the point is that he met with Maureen. He followed everything she advised him to do to the T. And I'm not kidding. That wound started healing immediately within days. I've told you all earlier, you don't believe me maybe, but that you can see results when you change your diet. You can see results within days to weeks. That's exactly what happened with Kevin. He got off the antibiotics, and the surgeon said, whoa, maybe no amputation here. It turns out that this not only started to heal, but it healed completely within 3 months. This is his foot. You can see the area closed up completely. There's no open sore, and it looks lighter because it's a scar at that point. And it takes time for the scars to remodel and change. But now here's the thing, though. This is absolutely what I love about plant-based. There's so many things, but this doesn't just heal one part of your body. It heals your whole body. So Kevin also was suffering with erectile dysfunction, also was suffering with peripheral neuropathy. And you know what? Now, when I say peripheral neuropathy, it was so bad that he had severe pain. He was on opiate pain medications, and it was severe pain. Well, guess what happened? The erectile dysfunction went away. And I didn't mention this earlier. I talked about erectile dysfunction, but I don't think I mentioned that you can reverse it with a plant-based diet. You can get off of the Viagra, Levitra, whatever it may be. Not only get off of it, but you can open up your arteries elsewhere in your body. So what ended up happening with Kevin, we believe, is that his arteries to his foot, his circulation to his foot opened up. His circulation to his genitals opened up, and his nerve function and his inflammation improved. 90% of his neuropathy pain went away. He got off his painkillers. So here's a man who was really going to be, pretty much, depressed like my dad, more or less, with very poor quality of life. And within 3 months, his life is completely transformed. No erectile dysfunction, very little pain, and 2 legs, as opposed to 1. And so that's an incredible story. I'll share another one. We've all heard, or maybe some of you haven't, that, of course, like I mentioned this just a moment ago, that we open up our arteries when we eat plant-based. Well, it turns out that, actually, I have a couple stories on this real quick, but one quick one is, his name is Jerry. Jerry was in his 50s with diabetes as well. He would walk across the parking lot, just the parking lot. He'd have to stop because of chest pain. This was happening every day. They did an angiogram on him. They found multiple blockages. They told him bypass surgery was going to be the answer if nothing else worked, and nothing else was working. He was eating a diet primarily of chicken and fish with some vegetables, and that wasn't working. A lot of times we think, well, less red meat, more chicken and vegetable. That wasn't working. He was exercising. That wasn't working. He came to our program. He goes plant-based, and I'm not kidding, everybody. Within a matter of days, the chest pain started to fade away. Within 2 months, it essentially completely went away. He avoided the bypass surgery. Bypass surgery is very invasive. They saw open your chest. They slice open your leg. They stop your heart. It's very risky. 1% to 2% of people die from the surgery. It's expensive, of course, but it's just an awful thing to not have to go through if you can avoid it. And he avoided it, and he's just so grateful to this. But and that's an awesome story right there. But here's another story of a man named Mark, who actually had, believe it or not, sudden cardiac arrest 2 times playing basketball. After he already had a heart attack, I should back up, heart attack in his 40s, years later, a bypass. He already had a bypass surgery, and then sudden cardiac arrest twice. And he goes plant-based, and they have an angiogram before and after. I don't know whether you guys can see this very well, but before he goes plant-based, there's a couple areas here and here that are pinched because of blockages. And within a couple years after going plant-based, those areas opened up. And this is proof. And this is not, yes, this is Mark and this is one patient, but there have been other published cases and studies showing this, and we've seen it. It does work. And Mark is doing fantastic. And not only that, again, this heals your whole body. Mark lost a lot of weight. This was him before and after. He also had pre-diabetes, which went away. And his cholesterol actually was a little high for what his cardiologist wanted. His LDL cholesterol was 89, which, when you have severe heart disease like Mark, you want to have it as low as possible. And he was already on medication. He was already taking Crestor. Well, when he goes plant-based, his LDL of 89 went down to 66. So the plant-based diet lowered it 26% further than what the cholesterol medicine was doing. And Mark is so passionate about this. He volunteers for us. And he's becoming essentially a coach, and he works in a local courthouse, and he organizes potlucks for every plant-based potlucks, and he's just fantastic. I'll just show a couple more pictures, and then and I'll end with hopefully some inspiration for people. And I will have time for questions as long as you have time, AJ, and people are still on. But this is Julie. You can see before and after. This is kind of mostly a weight loss story, but Julie actually had weight loss surgery. She had weight loss surgery and regained most of the weight. So the picture here on the left, or at least on my left, I don't know what it is her after gaining the weight back after the surgery. And a lot of people think, well, once I have weight loss surgery, that's it. That's the best I can do. When they gain the weight back, they're depressed. But the weight loss surgery might fix how much you eat, but it doesn't fix what you eat. And so Julie lost, she had gained up, she initially went from 270 to 170 and regained up to 245. Now she's down to about 157. So she lost 85 pounds just going plant-based. And yes, you can go plant-based after weight loss surgery. And just ask Dr. Garth Davis, who I believe you also had on recently, AJ. And her cholesterol also dropped 27%. That's Julie. Here's a patient, Sally. I'm going to show her before and after. I say after, but she's still losing. She was weighing in the mid 300s, like 350, 360, and now about 210, 215. And she, this is remarkable because it's not just weight, it's quality of life. She was using a walker. She had severe knee pain in both knees. She could barely walk, not only because of the knee pain, but because of shortness of breath. She needed knee replacement surgery in both knees, but they told her they couldn't do it because she was too overweight, too obese. and she felt like hopeless. What am I going to do? Because how am I going to lose weight if I can't exercise? Everyone thinks you need to exercise to lose weight or starve yourself, and starvation wasn't an option. It's not an option for any of us, really. So she goes plant-based. She loses about 150 pounds, 150 pounds. And I call it the magical buffet. I haven't really talked much about this because you can eat as much as you want because all that fiber and water helps you lose weight. So you eat freely and you get all these benefits with diabetes and blood pressure and cholesterol and heart disease and arteries opening up, et cetera, et cetera. But in any case, she lost so much weight that she was able to have the surgeries one at a time. Now she no longer needs a walker. She doesn't even use a cane anymore. And her breathing is better. She can walk all over the place and not be short of breath anymore. So she's a completely transformed person, not because she did this crazy exercise regimen or because she starved herself, but because she ate from the magical buffet. I mean, it's truly incredible. And she's so happy. She's so, so happy. Any case, I have other stories, but I'll stop there with the stories. But I just want to say though that, first of all, I hope this was helpful for people listening. I hope that, I hope you learned something, and whatever stage you're at, I hope you can advance to the next stage in your life as far as your health, that you can challenge yourself. I'll talk more about that in just a moment because I have a quote from my mom I want to share. But I just want to, this goes without saying, but wherever you are on your journey, logical steps. Get the education you need, read the books, watch documentaries, read some studies, especially if you're a medical person. Watch Chef AJ's interviews, they're incredible. And there's a lot of good, excellent summits out there as well that you've been a part of, AJ, and others as well. So get educated and then build some support. If it's not family, maybe it's friends, maybe it's online community. There's plenty of Facebook groups. I know, AJ, you have a whole online community and a weight loss program. Get the support you need, taste the food, get recipes, and go for it. And know that you're not alone. We're all in this together. Whatever you, and I'm not here to, some of my friends, I think maybe they think I judge them for how they eat. I don't want to that's not who I am. And I don't think that's who we should be. I think we need to support people wherever they are, meet them where they are, and help them, and help them be the best they can be, and love them. And I think I've learned the hard way about that. I know Dr. Doug Lyle is excellent at coaching people through that. So I just want to say a few things in conclusion and share a few quotes, and then I'm happy to take questions. First of all, I always dedicate my work to my dad. As I mentioned, I promised him before I passed away, I wouldn't let his suffering go or be in vain, that I would help prevent needless suffering to others that he went through. But the other thing is, tomorrow's Mother's Day. So I want to wish everyone out there, all the mothers, and all those of you who are acting like a mother, even that maybe you're not a biological mother, but you're a mother to somebody, even a mother to a dog or a pet or whatever it may be. Chef AJ, you're a mother to Bailey. So happy Mother's Day to you. But a special happy Mother's Day to my wife, Patty, to my mother-in-law, who's an amazing mom, and my mother-in-law, Luna, also an amazing mom, and of course to my mom. And I want to share something about my mom, a quote. It's not so much a quote, but it's more like a motto she taught me my whole life. She taught me to take the extra step in life, take the extra step. And this is really important now more than ever, because so many of us have been thinking, I know we all, wherever you are in life, I'm sure you've been thinking, well, I could do better with diet, or I could do better with exercise. I could do better with sleep, with stress, whatever it may be. We all know we can do better. So what my mom taught me is just take the extra step, push yourself, don't let things get in the way. And whether it's fear, whether it's lack of whatever it is, even sometimes lack of support, you may not feel you have the support, whatever it may be, just push yourselves, because sometimes if I didn't push myself years ago, I could have been dead today, and I wouldn't be the doctor I am today, helping people it's so much more rewarding, the work I do today. I think that goes without saying. So much more. I've had people, cry and hug me and everything because of the lifestyle medicine that I help them with. I don't have people crying over the pills and hugging me over the pills I give them. So push yourself. A few quotes I want to share, hopefully to inspire you. This one is from some doctor named Stephen Lawenda, MD. And what he says is, he says, eat more plants and you'll have smaller pants, you'll have less ills and you'll need less pills.
That sounds like a rap song. I'm going to have to put that to music.
That one's for you, AJ, too, because I know you like catchy, quotes. I came up with that a couple of months ago. This is another one. The idea is to die, is to die young as late as possible. So the idea is, we're all going to die eventually, but let's add years to our life and life to our years, right? Let's make it quality years. This is one from Abraham Lincoln. The best way to predict your future is to create it. You may not realize how much control you have over your destiny and your family's destiny. And your life is not just yours, it's your family and friends. As I mentioned, there's ripple effects to health. Last but not least, today is only one day in all the days that will ever be, but what will happen in all of the other days that ever come can depend on what you do today. So today can be the beginning of the rest of your life, a new chapter. You don't have to wait. You shouldn't wait. I don't know if I can't remember if I mentioned this. I'll just real quick, but 2/3 of heart attacks, there's no warning symptoms. So the point is that if you're thinking, I'll just wait until something happens, don't wait. Don't wait to become my dad. Don't wait for a heart attack to happen. You may not survive it. You may not survive that stroke, or you might be disabled permanently from that stroke. So start today. Protect yourself against COVID and flu and infections. Protect yourself. And when COVID's gone, and hopefully it'll be gone before long, we will have all these other chronic diseases. They're not going away. So best wishes to all of you. We're in this together. And thanks, AJ, for having me on. I hope this was helpful.
It was amazing. I don't know if you can see the comments, Dr. Lawenda. There's somebody saying what a great doctor you are, how people wish they had a doctor like you. Louise says, your patients must be so appreciative having you as their physician. Thank you for being so passionate, so knowledgeable, eloquent, and talking about the whole food plant-based lifestyle benefits. You're sharing your personal story was so powerful. Thank you. And there's many, many more quotes like this. And I believe that once this goes up on YouTube, you can still see the chat if you want.
Sure. For some reason, I don't know if I'm seeing the chat, but yeah.
So we did have one question that was sent in advance that I'd like to ask you first, and then maybe we can get a few from the live feed, if that's okay.
Sure. Happy to do that, sure.
Great. This is from Debbie in Northern California. She says, I have two friends who both have generalized autoimmune symptoms, and one of them has MTHFR. They both have a laundry list of allergies, including avocado, nuts, and several different vegetables. One of them tried going plant-based for a few days, and she said her body flared up worse than it ever has. She thinks it has to do with the lectins in the beans. I fully believe this lifestyle can bring healing to anyone, but what do you do with patients in this situation?
My goodness, these patients in situations like this are probably the most challenging when it comes to plant-based. But a lot of times I have a lot of patients who have certain sensitivities to food, sometimes allergies. What I say is this, I say, make a list of the things you can eat, because a lot of times people tell me what they can't eat. And a lot of times people say, look, doctor, I can't eat these 10 foods. There's no way I can go plant-based. And I say, wait a minute, that's 10 foods, but what about the 99,000 other foods out there that maybe you can't eat? So now I'm not trying to minimize the concern here, because it sounds like this person is, has a lot of allergies and sensitivities. But the other thing that I find too, so that's one thing, is make a list of things you can eat, and then maybe we can work with that to start with. The other thing is that depending on the allergy or sensitivity, sometimes it's not a severe allergy or severe sensitivity, and maybe it's just a symptom they have, like maybe beans cause bloating, or maybe whatever it may be. And so maybe we could start with small amounts of some of these things. The other thing too is that there are elimination diets out there where people can just start with one type of food, like sweet potatoes, and then the next thing they'll try maybe is some kale or something, whatever it may be. And you can move down the list of things slowly but surely and work your way through. But honestly, that is a challenge. It takes time. And but I don't want people to, how do I put it? Everybody's different, but I don't want people to give up because of, there's so many obstacles that we all have. A lot of people tell me, I don't have time. Can I share with you something? A lot of people have said to me, I don't have time to go plant-based. I'm so busy, doctor. I always eat on the run. I don't have time to cook. I just get fast food. And now, unfortunately, a lot of people are home because of COVID-19. And unfortunately, you know, the same people who said that they don't have, not always the same people, but a lot of people have other, you know, the point is that I think it's not just these excuses, but there's, as you know, Chef AJ, there's the pleasure trap. There's so many obstacles that we have. And a lot of times we're not being honest with ourselves. So really think about, do you really want this for yourself? What is your why for doing it? What are your obstacles? Maybe you're telling yourself your allergy to greens or beans is your whatever it may be is your obstacle, but is that really it? Or so any case, I'm not sure if that the person who sent in that question, you know, I don't think I know that person, but I would want to really understand everything I could about this person's situation to really meet them where they are and work with them. And it may take a lot of time and it may not be easy. But most people listening are not that person, fortunately, and I feel bad for the person that, you know, has that situation.
Well, you know, I interviewed a registered dietitian, Visanto Molina, who writes books with Brenda Davis a few weeks ago. And she said she gets a lot of clients like that if they're willing to have a private session with a really knowledgeable plant-based dietitian. She said there's never been a diet she couldn't devise that was nutritionally sound in the plant-based world for people, even with lots of allergies and intolerances. And I'm one of these people that have a ton of them, and I'm thriving, baby.
Amen.
Yeah, amen. So Lily says, what is your opinion on the masks? Do you think it's helping with immunity? I mean, because people, I mean, some people, you know, we have, I don't want to get into this doctor versus this doctor, but, you know, Dr. Lawenda, there is a wide spectrum, even in the plant-based world, where some doctors thinking this is very, very, very serious. This is not the flu. And others thinking this is a hoax. And then there's everything in between. So, but the question is just about the masks. You know.
Sure, no, I understand. You know, the concern of the reason that there is a recommendation now for the masks, and I do support the recommendation, is that there is a concern. There's been studies showing that a significant amount of the transmission of the virus is from asymptomatic people. So people who have no symptoms whatsoever, and could be a kid, a healthy adult, whatever it may be, and then they end up passing it to somebody who is at risk. And not only at risk, but potentially could die from it. So the idea is that these masks do help. And of course, we know that this is transmitted through droplets. So the masks, they're not perfect, but I think anything we can do to limit, you know, to be honest with you though, too, I don't want people to think that just because they're wearing a mask, that they can just have a big party with 200 people as long as everybody's wearing masks either, because really the best thing is to try and limit your exposure, and limiting exposure is just not being around a lot of people if you can avoid it, if you can prevent it. And so anyway, I'm all for the masks, but and for those reasons, and but we're really going to have to stay distant, unfortunately, for the time being.
Well, there's never been more fashionable masks available than now. Dr. McDougall's birthday is next week, and I got him potato masks for his birthday.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure he's not watching, so it won't ruin the surprise. That is great. So a question from Adanya, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. She wants to know if you could please speak to the popularity of the keto diet.
Oh, sure. I was afraid that could come.
It always does.
So the couple of concerns with keto. First of all, there's short-term results and long-term results. And in the short term, the keto seems to work pretty well when it comes to weight loss, and works pretty well when it comes to many things. In fact, if anything, to be honest, I'm not trying to be too funny or sarcastic, but almost any diet is better than what the standard American diet is. So if somebody is eliminating all the processed food from their diet, they're going to see amazing results. And whether they do that in the context of a keto diet, in the context of a plant-based diet, they're going to get good results. So weight loss is going to happen with keto. A lot of the weight loss in the beginning is water weight, but nonetheless, so weight loss is there. They're going to see improvements in their diabetes, because if you eliminate all the carbohydrates, you're not going to see your sugar spike like it did before. And a lot of people do feel better. But the problem is that long-term, what we're seeing in studies is that a low-carb diet has increased risk for heart disease, for cancer, and for overall longevity. That's long-term. Those are my biggest concerns. The other thing that we're seeing as well is we're also seeing that even though the diabetes appears to be better in people who follow keto, diabetes is caused by insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is what happens when you eat carbohydrates. Well, if you take the carbohydrates away, you can't really test that. But as soon as people on keto start eating carbohydrates again, they might eat an apple or an orange or whatever it may be, we see that the insulin resistance is actually still there. It's not better. In fact, it may even be worse on a keto diet, because it appears that certain high-fat foods, especially high saturated fat, seems to play a big role in insulin resistance. That may actually worsen the insulin resistance, and that when the person starts eating carbohydrate again in the future, and most people don't stick with the keto diet long term, they may have the diabetes come back worse than ever before, potentially. So that they're not really reversing the underlying cause of diabetes. Now, with the plant-based diet, it's the opposite. You lose weight with the plant-based diet, you reverse the underlying cause of diabetes, you reverse your heart disease, you have better longevity, less risk of certain cancers. So there seems to be better long-term results. And there may also be other short-term benefits as well, because there's concerns with too much animal protein and kidney stones, and there's other things too. So potentially even too much animal protein may be, if I'm not mistaken, there may be concerns depending on what it is with osteoporosis and other things. But so I think that helps. I hope that helps.
Terrific. We have a question from Beverly. If you can go on a whole food plant-based diet if you have kidney disease and high potassium. I once heard a webinar
yes.
with Dr. McDougall said, if you have kidney disease, you damn well better go on a plant-based diet.
Yes, actually, yes. So here's the thing. If you catch it early enough, it probably will prevent your kidneys from getting worse, number one, if you catch it early. I mean, once you're on dialysis, it's extremely difficult. I've heard of stories of people getting off dialysis, but the idea is not to end up on dialysis. But so number one, it actually can help protect your kidneys. Plant-based diet is very protective. In fact, people with chronic kidney disease who follow a plant-based diet have lower mortality. But they're also, the number one cause of death in people who have chronic kidney disease is heart disease. So they need to be on a plant-based diet. And now, yes, if your kidney disease is severe, you may need to be a little extra careful with your potassium, with your phosphorus. But actually phosphorus, it turns out though that the phosphorus from plant foods is not as bioavailable. In other words, your body doesn't absorb it as much. So it's actually not really a concern. The concern mainly is the potassium, or potentially potassium. But we have had, in my medical center, in my program, many patients with chronic kidney disease go plant-based, do absolutely fine with a plant-based diet. Some of them have had to be a little careful with potassium, with some of the higher potassium foods. But honestly, that's a relatively small thing to be concerned about when it comes to the huge benefits you'll be gaining in your health from going plant-based.
That's terrific. Well, Dr. Lawenda, I could talk to you for another hour. However, I have waiting in the wings, and I have to set up for the next show, Dr. Baxter Montgomery, who's going to answer all of these questions that came in on cardiovascular disease. I'm sure you could have answered them too, but then he'd have nothing to do. So thank you so much for your passion. You're just so inspiring. And, you could just come on, Dr. Esther wants to come on again. He's another one. You tall guys are just so inspiring. You're almost like ministers. So come on anytime you want to share, because we would love to see you. And if you don't follow, I follow less than 50 people on Instagram, friends only. And Dr. Lawenda is one of my favorites because his food is beautiful. You would think he's a chef, let me tell you. So Beverly says, I feel like crying. An answer for me. Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, please always consider having a consultation with a plant-based doctor. Almost all of them somewhere do them. You can't though, because you work at Kaiser, right?
Right. But I have people, I have patients all over Southern California who have Kaiser. Even though they're not in my medical center, I could still be their doctor or still consult with them. And I've done that too. I'm happy to do that.
Great. Well, I sure tell you, I don't miss LA, but I do miss Dr. Steve Lawenda.
Oh, thanks, AJ. Miss you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. You're one of my heroes. And thank you guys so much for watching. Come back in 30 minutes. We're going to have another wonderful presentation from Dr. Baxter Montgomery. Take care, Dr. Lawenda. Say hi to the family.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
All the best. Bye.